How's my hair look?
Great.
We're right.
Yeah, that when you burned it looked really good.
Right.
Are we in chat?
We're in shot, alright, yeah.
Welcome to the first of our podcasts which have been videoed. Actually, fun fact for the podcast trivia, we originally videoed the first one we did with Gabriel.
Yeah.
And
So maybe it's a welcome back.
but we never put it up. It's actually on our uploads, but it's just not been released. So we probably should put that up actually.
Yeah.
At some point.
Is it up there, yeah?
It's on our. It's just unpublished. I don't know why we never uploaded it, but you know, the universe has funny ways, you know, and everything the right time, you know. Everything happens for a reason, Fitz. Do I sound alright to you?
Yeah, you sound great.
Sound kind of muffled in my head. But so we're just going to do a little trial run of the podcast. We're going to do some Q&As. So we have some 5 questions here.
Some questions.
It's a broad spectrum of questions.
The first question is weightlifting centric.
Yeah.
And it's, do you think Lasha will reach that 500 kilo total?
I think he is capable of reaching the 500 kilo
Yeah.
total, but I do not think he's going to do it in competition because it's just too much.
I don't think he's going to do it in training either.
Yeah, I think he can do it.
Yeah, but I don't think he's going to.
No, I don't think so. Like, we asked Gabriel about this before, and he's just one example, and I know Miso kind of feels the same. So when we're non-competitive weightlifters, numbers is all that matters. So for everyone watching, numbers is what's the big thing for you because you don't have a hope in hell of winning an Olympic gold.
Yeah.
But for elite weightlifters, full-time professional weightlifters, all they care about is winning. So winning is all that matters. Making a little bit of money. So breaking world record by 1 kilo is the same amount of money as breaking world record by 10 kilos or 5 kilos. So
Yeah.
it's like we saw Liu Xiaojun, you know, he took like 1 kilo off the world record. Very small amounts. Because for them, it makes sense to do more. So rather than doing one big world record where you break it by like 5 kilos and you could never break it again, you do a little bit every time. And often what happens is weightlifting is just so fucking hard. You never get the chance to do it again. So I don't think it would just be an astronomical performance.
Yeah, I think what you're seeing is like, so undoubtedly, like, historically great snatch and historically great clean and jerk. But I don't think, like, if you look at where he is now, and obviously there's that thing of like being motivated by medals and by world records, it's completely different to somebody having this abstract goal of 100 kilo snatch. You know, like it's not the same thing. They're not. That's not what
A laudable goal.
a what?
A very laudable goal.
Very laudable, yeah. But it's like that's not what motivates any of the high level weightlifters we've ever met.
No, like I remember asking that Gabriel that very specific question. Would you rather have bigger numbers or medals? And he said medals, 100%. There was no
And
question.
Miso is the same.
Yeah, for sure. Medals are all that matter for your country, for you, for your financial, everything. Numbers are, if the numbers were 50 kilos lower, it doesn't matter to them.
Yeah.
Makes no difference.
I think like an easy way of maybe getting an idea for that would be asking a soccer player, would you love to score 5 goals in a match, or would you love to win the Champions League or the World Cup? Like, you know, like winning is what matters in competition, not the metric by which you won.
Like very often we see weightlifters not even like, so they've won by a huge margin and they just don't even take a third attempt sometimes, which they could go for a world record because it's just, there's just so many reasons not to do it. You know, obviously world record weights are incredibly injury risk. There's also a little one
at incredible risk.
Very risk. So we also have, like, you know, if you're stepping out of line by too much, you might be shot down. You know, that is a genuine concern in weightlifting, which the last thing on this point is that you're talking about snatching 235 kilos, which he doesn't appear to be close to now, and clean and jerking 265 kilos. Well, it would probably be 225 and 275 or whatever.
Okay.
Or whatever, variation.
Like, it's not like we're watching the World Championships the Olympics next year and being like, oh, it could happen now. I don't think it will.
I don't think his jerk is not up to scratch for a 275 kilo jerk, and there's multiple reasons why we could go into that. I think first of all, his arms are just very fucking long.
Yeah.
Also, I suppose the weight is incredibly heavy. It's massively heavy.
Crazy weights.
He seems to do a lot of push press, and when your arms are very long, the last thing you want to be doing is engaging your arms more. He also has, there's an issue with super heavyweights is that they're incredibly fat and they have to move their own body weight in conjunction with moving a massively heavy bar. Like those weights are just heavy as fuck. So him trying to overcome the kind of inertia of changing that direction of that dip. It's going from 265, which he's done 264, I think, in competition, and the jerk is slow.
Yeah,
and it's very weird to see a jerk that slow at 264. And actually, in a recent interview on Taroki's channel, he mentioned, or his coach was like, "We're working on the jerk,
Yeah,
I'd like to go to 275.
Yeah, even to go to 270.
Like he looks
having done a 230 snatch beforehand.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He could definitely do the 225 snatch. I feel like that's within he's. Although again, it might be that they're incredibly hard for him.
I'd say they are incredibly hard.
You know what I mean? Like it's all relative to you at the same time. They
Yeah.
might not feel like massively heavy weights, but like he's 221. I think is the most he's done in competition.
Yeah.
Like that might be the absolute limit, and half a kilo more, as we know, weightlifting is very strange. That like he might never get that. Like
Interesting note about a 275 jerk.
What?
Who do you think has done a 275 jerk from rack and broken his shoulder?
Oh, was that or Clockoff? Isn't it?
Yeah, apparently in his book, Clockoff said before one of the injuries.
Wasn't it behind your neck or something? Wasn't it?
I don't know if it was behind it. No, I think it might have been just from blocks. He said he attempted 4 times in a day or something.
Wasn't that because he had no coach at the time?
Yeah. And there was very much anger.
Yeah.
Now I have anger, I will be good. But like, yeah, he broke his shoulder doing it. Which is fucking mental.
Imagine what the gear they were on at that
Also, Clockoff probably has a bigger strict press than
most supers do.
The vast majority of supers.
When they go, like, there's a reason, like, all those training camps are in the mountains in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
God bless him.
Yeah.
275.
God bless us and save us.
But he made it then in the end, didn't he?
Yeah.
He was like recovering or something. And he said he hurt his shoulder.
Yeah. That's also like, Joe, a self-written autobiography. We don't really know, but
yeah, we don't know what happened.
Yeah, I love to think that did happen. Like,
I could believe that. I mean, his jerk, he's incredibly good. To be fair. Like we've seen him do at least 250 from rack when he wasn't competitive at somebody's like power weekend or something.
Yeah.
I'm almost certain it was behind the neck or something.
Anyway.
Anyway. Like we have seen Misha Kaklayev jerk 270. That seminar in Glasgow, that famous video on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's like fucking millions of views. He looked like he could have done 280, to be honest with that.
Yeah.
But I don't know, was Lash 275
I
clean
think we need to move on to the next question.
It's an interesting topic, though. Obviously,
very interesting.
I'd be happy with a 225 snatch. That would be so cool. 5 reds.
I'd be happy with that myself.
The clean and jerk 270 would still be crazy.
Yeah.
There was rumours Stefan Bota, before we move on, he clean and jerk 270 in training. Or he wanted to, but Abijayev wouldn't let him.
Fuck.
So it'll tell you what he was capable of.
Next question.
Yep.
How can I jump higher?
So the first thing people always seem to forget when they're on about jumping higher is, are you doing jump training right now? So are you doing some kind of plyometric or jump specific training? Because if you look at any of those studies, and there's loads of studies on jumping, and all of them will compare like jumping versus no jumping with box squats, and guess who got better at jumping? The jumping. So skills, if you want to get better at a skill in any athletic endeavor, you need to practice that said skill. Now obviously doing other skills makes you better at some skills, like there's carryover and there's a reason you do strength training, all that. But before we move on, you get to the next part of this, you need to make sure you're doing enough, make sure you're doing any kind of jumping first of all, the right kind of jumping. What would you say is next?
What I'd say next is you need to start looking at prioritizing like the training of muscle fibers, like exactly. So there's no point in you doing a lash of jump training and plyometrics and like stretch shortening cycle system stuff and then going and running your 5Ks and stuff. Like, or when you see field athletes all the time will do like, oh, I'm going to do my sprint training now, and then at the end of the session they do 400 meters. You're like, do you have any fucking idea what you're doing? Like, and it's not their fault. Most of the time it's a coach or whatever, but if you're trying to get fast, then you prioritize fast movement. If you're trying to jump high, you prioritize jumping high, and that will mean that kind of long steady state stuff, or definitely the kind of work capacity stuff in the middle, that stuff just has to go away for a while. And then my second point, and that would be jump high. So if you're looking to jump high and you're doing like you're using box jumps to train that, which isn't the ideal thing to do, but it's a good thing that a lot of people will do in the gym, then you need to jump high. You don't need to jump onto a high box.
Yep.
So we see all the time, and like weightlifters are a catalyst for this bad habit. But it's not a bad habit for weightlifters. So what I'm talking about is a box being super high, like up to chin or nose level, and they're jumping onto it and they're landing in a really, really deep squat. That's great for weightlifters because it's generating a huge amount of force and then getting into a really, really deep squat position, which is what the pull will be most of the time. Whereas for athletes or for people who want to jump high, you need to focus on moving your center of mass higher. So even if it's like the bottom 2 steps of your stairs, you should be landing just a tiny bend in your knee on the balls of your feet, like landing in a position like the power position at the top of your clean pull or snatch pull, like just barely dipped. And then you increase the height of that and you jump higher, not just jumping onto a higher box.
In terms of like frequency and volume, jumping lower volume is usually much better for jumping. So that's from, like, I did see a study recently actually, was that they compared lower volume with high velocity training, whatever, and lower volume training is better. It makes sense because you want to use speed as your indicator of performance. And as soon as your speed drops, you can just do this like internally. I feel slow, so I'm just going to stop. Like that's a perfect way. You don't need to buy what do they call the velocity meters? Accelerometer. Like you don't need to get something like that. You can just literally go, the second set of jumps feels slower than the first set of jumps, so stop. So keep your jumping volume very low, much lower than you think you need to be, and then just have the frequency maybe twice a week, potentially 3 times a week, but I would say start with twice a week.
Yeah, I think twice is plenty for most people.
And then I suppose the final question is kind of, it usually goes in with this, is like, what about squatting, like, and squatting's effect on jumping? And squatting will have an effect on jumping. I don't think it matters the depth. So people wonder, squats parallel or high bar squats all the way down. I really don't think it has that much of like, there's not that much of a difference between a box squat to a full squat on jumping specifically.
What I would say on that issue, on the depth of the squat is, so you see this with athletes a lot where they'll just do like a quarter squat, or what people will call a quarter squat, and they might do it to a box. They're basically limiting the amount of squats they're doing because they're not doing the real deep squats, and they're allowing themselves to get bullshit strong in that range of motion, and that's so much more important than anything else. So if I've a 200 kilo squat and Gurf is a 200 kilo squat, it doesn't matter for jumping specific. It doesn't matter if mine is just above parallel and Gurf's is a full range of motion squat, or that's what all the research and kind of all of our experience would kind of back up as well, is that you just need to be strong in your range of motion. Having the full range of motion is great, and in terms of injury recovery, and most of the time people want to jump high, they're jumping higher for sports or doing something like that, and having that range of motion is great in terms of kind of bulletproofing yourself. But for jump performance, it doesn't have to be a deep squat.
And so finally, the last one is, realistically, you don't need to be doing weighted jumps. In fact, it's probably
definitely not. It's
probably counterproductive. So there's the hypothesis in sports science, is a dynamic power output hypothesis or whatever, that your body weight is is the best weight to use to produce the most power, and it's been backed up an awful lot. So unweighted jumps, don't do weighted squat jumps. They're useful for weightlifters, but basically for nobody else. Don't hold kettlebells, don't put on a weighted vest and do slam on that 4-inch box. So no weighted jumps.
No, I would actually recommend the opposite, but it's just incredibly hard to facilitate. Like, if you could have a facilitator that was speeding up the speed at which you jumped, that would be good, because we're now bringing in that thing of learning to jump faster and learning to jump higher. So if we had some sort of a Jimmy rigged system where
there is pulleys and stuff,
there is pulleys you can get, and you'll see athletes and they'll wear a harness around their hips, and they'll have like a bungee cord clipped on. That's what's happening there. You're training muscle fibers to contract faster, and obviously, like, more neural sequencing. But yeah, never ever weight the jumps. I would not recommend.
We gotta move on.
Jeez, we're behind already.
Sorry for anyone listening to this in the podcast, but we're fitting this for YouTube, and there's an issue with the Sony cameras that they have a 30-minute limit, and we've just been too fuck arsey around.
What time are we on now?
15 minutes, 15
Jesus
and a
Christ.
half. We got
This is a good one.
right. What is it?
Best thing to sip and snack on during workouts.
I'm a little fatty, like, so I like chocolate or any kind of like gummies.
You're such a fatty.
No shame
You're
in it.
the of anyone I've ever trained with. You're the worst.
But you're looking at my quad veins now as well, like, so at the same time, who's
yeah.
diabetes?
What I would say,
Sorry, just to say, that's not the I don't think that's the best one to sip or snack on, by the way. That's what I do. That is just what I like.
yeah. Look, different sessions require different things.
Yeah.
But I'm going to make, and there's things that affect this, right? If you're like a young athlete developing and it's hard to get food in and stuff, then you by all means have some intra-workout carbs, like have some sort of like really easily digestible carbohydrates during training. Or if you're somebody who's really trying to add mass, have some like orange juice or something during training, right?
Yep.
That would be my go-to, would be like
Salt
one of
orange
those, like one of those Monster Hydros, or like orange juice with some salts in it. All these things are great to like give you back electrolytes, but more importantly to be bringing up your carbohydrate level for the day. In terms of like nutrient timing, the biggest thing by far for me here is that these things can be very, very inhibitory to us performing well when we're training. So you'd see people drinking like shakes, or it used to be a lot more of a thing, like maybe 7 or 8 years ago, people slamming shakes when they're training, and it like, that's just fucking terrible unless you're bodybuilding or something. And then even when you're bodybuilding, that level of abdominal discomfort just is not good.
No.
I would say, having something with some sort of electrolytes in it is good for training, especially if you're doing longer sessions and more importantly, higher amounts of sets per exercise. So if you're in a peaking phase, not a peaking phase, if you're in like a realization phase and you've gone from doing high volume training, not really specific, to now doing loads and loads of sets of snatches and clean and jerks, like if you're doing 6 or 8 sets of snatch doubles and you're sitting down and resting in between, having some electrolytes or something that you can take on board will be good. If you're a little fatty like Gurf, I'll leave you take this on. I don't.
So I feel like most people probably aren't training long enough. So unless you're someone like Toma Lordina and you're doing the Romanian fucking system of training and you're training for 4 hours a total a day. So like last night I was in the gym for 3 hours, but I rested maybe 10 minutes between each exercise. But I did a lot of work last night. So you can kind of justify it in, I think. But most people sessions are probably lasting an hour and a half. And if I was training full time, I would probably do 2 hour and a half sessions. Like after that, then you need to be, and I don't do that every session as well. Like, so that you can't do that every single day. And so probably up to an hour and a half, if you've eaten any kind of glucose during that day, then you're totally fine basically for that workout, I would imagine. But then if you're getting beyond that, then maybe you could look at adding something. Obviously, it goes without saying, just drinking water is totally fine. And just auto-regulating.
If you're a loser. If
you're a fucking nerd. Auto-regulating water as well as the drink when you're thirsty. Like, so there is like recommendations for amount of water. I don't think. No,
like once your piss isn't fucking really yellow and like have a bad smell off it.
Like if it's not petrol, like you're probably okay. Like, so sip water as needed, drink when you're thirsty is probably the best recommendation there. But I don't think there's a make or break kind of scenario for like, oh, if you drink this, you'll
like
your performance by.
The one area I like some sort of like sugar in between is going from snatches and clean and jerks to squats.
That's exactly when I had my
and I like you're the same, but like I'd usually rest for like 15 or 20 minutes and just like get fully back if it's been a hard session, then take on something like that as you're kind of resting and then go again. What's your personal favorite?
I like gummies.
I know you do.
Chocolate is good as
well. You little fatty.
I like dark chocolate as well. All right, I think we need to move on again.
Right.
So really, like, so to sum that up, it probably doesn't matter unless you're training for like fucking the Olympics or something. Like, and that's not a flippant kind of disregard for what you're doing. Like, it's not something. It's just extra stress. And I talked about this in one of my training vlogs. Having crutches during training. You don't want to get into the mindset where you're like Geez, I don't have my fucking
I don't have my wrist straps.
my Glucose Max 6000 4X.
My test booster.
Electrolyte solution, you know, that Teen Asian cell and all that shit, you know, or what they used to. They used to be big fellas for that.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it may most likely will be a crutch. It's probably not going to be a huge performance booster, and it's just going to be another issue with training if you don't have it. And like, you want to eliminate these things. You want to make training super efficient.
And most of the time, you see people drinking things. They're drinking Monster or they're drinking some sort of pre-workout.
Yeah.
Like, you're talking about 45 minutes realistically before caffeine has any reasonable effect. So like, you're too late unless you're fucking really going to hit it hard for your finisher at the end of the session. You probably shouldn't be drinking. Like, I always drink Monster when I'm training, but that's just laziness. The next question then is, what do you think about squatting 4 to 5 times a week to regain strength? And this is from a rugby player.
So I don't think that's a good idea, first of all. Obviously, if you have done the Road to Anywhere squat program, it is 2 days a week. And often we say, do as we say, not as we preach, but I can back this up with I back squat twice a week. So I front squat twice a week as well, but front squats barely count for weightlifting in terms of like the absolute weights are much below what I could handle in terms of like fatigue, you know. So 2 back squats a week for me and for basically anyone we've ever coached, it works fantastic. So you can squat every day or 4 to 5 times a week, but you're most likely just going to over fatigue yourself and then not make any progress or get injured or ultimately limit your squat gains.
Yeah, and I think so what people have here is they've been like, oh, I assume this is the situation where they've been away from the gym because the gyms have been closed. They're now coming back into the gym and they want to get strong as fast as possible because the season is starting probably in September, October. The thing is, like, and it's the kind of John Bros mentality of squat every day or whatever it is, where they're like, oh, if you were stuck on a desert island and you had to get a big squat as fast as possible, then you're obviously going to squat every day. Not necessarily. Like, there's so many other really valuable things you could be doing with your time that don't involve squatting every day, that will still make you much, much better.
Yep.
Definitely.
So, and just a little plug here as we can, Sika Strength Road to Anywhere squat program. It's on sikastrength.com 2 times a week. The average has to be like 30 kilos for the first run, and then there will be an 8-week maintenance program included with your download. So you get 16 weeks of squat program. It's €30. You're getting an average of like €1 per kilo on your squat, and I would happily pay €1.
Jesus, I'd pay €1 per kilo every day of the week.
Some people have gotten 45 kilos.
Yeah. And they're not even like, a lot of those big gains weren't noob gains.
No, like these are people who are squatting 150s, 60s, 70s, you know, stuff like where they're not tiny gains, like. So
no,
it is truly a great program.
And if you think you're going to work hard by squatting every day, you don't work harder. You just rob work from other days and spread it out over all of the days. Last question then. Yep. Jesus, we're already nearly out of time. What's that?
My phone died, so we've
my God.
4 minutes left.
Okay. Yeah. Is it possible to fully develop posterior chain without deadlifts? Do you want me to take this first?
I feel like you have an answer.
Deadlifts are good for posterior chain, right? But when people talk about development of posterior chain, there's different things happen developmentally from deadlifts that happen from just doing reverse hypers or just doing hamstring curls or just doing prone back extensions. So the key to the deadlift is huge neural loading bilaterally. So you're driving with both legs using the entirety of your spine. You're forcing as many of those neural signals down your central nervous system into your peripheral nervous system as possible for a second or two. And that kind of neural loading is very, very, very important if you're somebody who wants to sprint fast, jump high, hit people hard, be able to get hit hard and not explode, be able to lift big weights. So neurally, the deadlift is extremely fatiguing. Thus, it's extremely valuable for training that rate sequencing of like muscle fiber activation. If you're somebody who wants to have a good looking arse and well developed hamstrings, you probably never have to go near a deadlift. In the same way, if you're somebody who wants to have yacked quads, you don't need to ever squat.
Yep.
You know, like you're able to achieve all these things with different movements. It doesn't even have to be a compound movement. Like obviously compound movements are valuable in a huge other range, but like developing musculature is very different from developing strength, and it's very different from developing like coordination and rate firing of muscle fibers.
I think that sums that up pretty well. I think we have to cut it there anyway.
Thanks for watching and listening.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the visual podcast for our YouTubers.
And hopefully the audio was better than most of our YouTubes.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.